Hello, Healing Journeys today. How are you on this beautiful day? It is Carly and
Levi.
Conrad. So we're so excited to be with you the month of September, but this week we're like now 3 weeks into our guest teaching for the entire month, and we've had such a great time, haven't we, babe?
We have. It's been a great experience for us, and thank you everyone on here that reached out saying that they enjoyed what we've been sharing. That really means a lot to us, and it's been fun to just stir up some things that are in our heart already, and to share it with you guys.
So it's been really fun doing that together. As you guys know, we did just get married a few months ago. So it's so exciting that we get to minister together and just share what's on our heart. So we talked last week about finding your vision, and I just want to ask, comment below if you actually did that and you actually did the steps that we talked about of what you're good at, what you love to do, what there's a need for in the market that might overlap what you can do with your vision. Right below what you did, like in the comment section, if you did it or if you found a vision that you feel like God is calling you to right now, write it down and then ask yourself, like, are you clear on that? Like, is there anything else you need to define? Any other directional thing you want to solidify before you start planning now for this vision? Because I'm going to quickly go over how to plan your vision well. But then we wanted to talk today about finishing your vision well, like actually keeping the momentum when you're going along this journey, because I'm sure everyone here can relate to obstacles in life that try to get in the way of doing something. We've had businesses our whole lives, and babe, haven't you experienced some obstacles when you are trying to pursue it?
There's been a few.
Same here. And so there's like even so many in my story that I'm like trying to figure out like what to even share as an example, because there's been a billion. So all that to say, I just really wanted to share that with you guys, that it is really important to keep the momentum and to stay motivated on your vision path to success. Yeah. So before we get into kind of that and how the Lord helps us to stay motivated, to stay on our momentum and grow that, I really wanted to focus on how now you can take your vision and actually put a plan behind it. Does that sound good, babe?
That sounds great.
I just wanted to give us like a tactical way to actually apply to our lives right after this video, during this video, that you can literally start doing today. So if you look at your vision, right, it could be really big. Hopefully it's really big. If it's too easy to do in your own strength, it's not big enough. So first of all,
probably not from God, if you can
right.
do it yourself.
So if that is a direction you want to go, though, ask the Lord, hey, how can you take the limits off of my mind to make this like such a much bigger vision that I cannot do on my own? So that's one piece of the puzzle. Now that you have this big, amazing God-sized vision, it might be a little like intimidating, like, okay, how am I supposed to speak to a crowd of 20,000 people if that's your vision, or whatever it is, start this massive business? How am I supposed to do that and do it in a timely manner? So I like to teach this in a way of a 12-month period, just to be general for anyone, but it could be any timeline that you feel comfortable with, that the Lord has put on your heart. 6 months, 12 months, 1 month, like 5 years, whatever. There's visions of all sizes and dreams of all sizes. But with that, how can you now break down this massive dream into very easy to achieve goals? And how can you say, I know I want to be in 1 year, but what do I have to do today to get me there? Yeah. So the way that I like to break it down is really looking at the full like vision, write it down, make it very plain, as Habakkuk 2:2 says. And then I want you to break it down into quarter-sized chunks. So there's 3 months every quarter, right? And there's 4 quarters in 1 year. So however long your vision is that you're going to be planning for, break that down into quarters. So say, what are some milestones and checkpoints I can check off along the way quarterly, so that way I have a big vision still, but it's a little bit smaller, more attainable because I know what I have to do. Now that you have your quarters, there's 3 months in a quarter, so now plan for your month. So now you want to have 3 goals per quarter, focusing on your monthly milestones. Okay, so now what is one thing per month that you can really hone in on to be focused for that quarter? Now you might be wondering, what's next? Weeks. So now there's 4 weeks in a month, generically speaking. Sometimes there's 5. But with these 4 weeks, you want to now set one goal per week, one like bigger goal per week that you know you can do, since everyone's schedule is different and lifestyle is different. After you plan out those goals for the week, then you want to plan out 3 things you can do per day towards that goal. Now, you don't have to do it 7 days a week. You could do 5 days a week or 3 days a week, whatever works for your schedule. But don't make it so difficult. I mean, like, your tasks can literally be email someone, text someone, do this, do that, like very easy stuff, but it just takes you on that amazing journey and path to actually get there. So that's kind of how we take a massive vision and break it down into daily tasks so you can stay on track to where you are headed, but remain motivated along the way because you have a plan. Now, that does not mean that that's like the only way to stay motivated, because we have a lot of things to share today as well on that, but that's just like a system thing that you can lay out so that you know where you're going to be at in 2 months from now with what you have to do. And you don't have to plan it all at once, but just along the way, you can start to fill in those gaps of your timeline and your roadmap so you know exactly what is coming next. Wouldn't that be so great to just know exactly what you need to do next month? An example for you is if you wanted to start a business, like let's say a coffee shop in 12 months time. Well, maybe this first quarter can be, I want to create a solid marketing plan for my coffee shop. Yeah. So now you have 3 months to do this in that quarter. And so maybe the first month is I want to build a website. The second month is I want to develop my social media channels and my content. And my third month is I want to work with influencers to get the word out. So now you can break that down into 4 goals per month, and then those daily tasks to get those weekly goals done, to get those monthly goals done. So that is really how to set a system for staying motivated, because you know where you're headed and you know where you're going. I think I mentioned last week, like when you're cooking something, you have a recipe usually, or if you're headed somewhere on maps, like you have the directions. You know what's coming next. You know where you're supposed to be right now and where you're going to be in 3 steps from now. So why don't we do that with our own goals? Why don't we do that with our own vision? Because we need to make it non-intimidating, because it is not intimidating once you break it down that simply.
Yeah. Some of you guys might have recently found a vision for where you want to be in life. You're co-laboring with God. He has a direction for you. You have a destination, so to speak, of what that might look like. There's been times in my life where I had a vision of where I wanted to go, but I didn't know how to get there, and I didn't even know the path that was necessary to get to where I needed to go. And this is the next step, I think, after settling on kind of a direction or a vision for your life. It doesn't have to be your life's purpose, but it's what God is calling you to do for this next season of your life, whatever phase you're in or whatever you're doing. So you have a vision. For me, I'm a very visual person, so sometimes God will actually give me images of myself in the future doing something, or just being a kind of person that I am not walking in right now, but I want to be in the future. So how do I get there? Well, I think, just piggybacking off of what Carly said, it really comes down to what are the kind of activities that future you or the kind of person. So say that God has given you a vision that you're supposed to be a millionaire entrepreneur. Well, what do millionaire entrepreneurs, how do they spend their time? What do they do on a daily basis? What do they do on a weekly basis?
That's really good.
what does their schedule look like? Now, you might not have the resources or the things around you to be able to just go into sort of like a millionaire lifestyle because you haven't started the business yet. But think of an entrepreneur that you really look up to who maybe has accomplished similar things to what you feel God is calling you to do. When they were in the startup phase, what were the kind of seeds that they were sowing that weren't visible to maybe people around them, but we can see now because of who they've become? What were they doing on a daily basis?
It's really good.
And it's going to be different for you because God has something special for you, but living your life in such a way where it's the trajectory from where you are today to where you're going makes sense. That's really the only way that you're going to get there is, doing the kind of things that the person that God has called you to be would do.
Or even what they weren't doing.
Right.
Scrolling on our phones for hours on social media or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, if an activity isn't good enough for the future you that's going to go out and accomplish all these things, well, they're not good enough for you today because you need to operate in faith and take ownership of that person. So, this could really apply to anything. It's just kind of like Jesus told the man that was laying by the pool of Bethesda, pick up your mat and walk. So basically do what a healed person would do,
right? Because
you're healed. And then the power of God hit him when he went up to act. It's very similar when you're walking out your vision that God has given you. God lives outside of time, so he sees you in the way that he's basically downloaded to you now for the vision that you have for your life. You gave the example of a coffee shop owner, an owner-operator of a successful coffee shop. How would they spend their day? Well, they're going to have to get up early. They're going to have to figure out how to roast beans. They're going to have to, have certain leadership qualities and abilities. They want to be growing that aspect of their life. They're probably reading leadership books, and they're spending time in the community, getting to know the kind of people that can help drive traffic once their shop is available. That doesn't mean that you go and say, hey, come visit my coffee shop. You don't have a coffee shop. You're not leading people on or being, you're not being like untruthful to where you actually are, but you're living as the kind of person that I'm a successful coffee shop operator.
Correct.
This is what successful coffee shop entrepreneurs live their life. So that's how I'm going to live my life because that's who I am, even though you don't have the coffee shop yet physically.
That's really good. And I think there's also that balance between even piggybacking off what you're saying. So an additional thought is when you are on that path of creating the coffee shop, are you just talking about it, or are you actually doing something about it? Because it will not come to pass unless we are actively doing it and putting our hand to the plow and making something happen from there.
There's also one saying that I really like, or a question I like to ask myself is, what's in my hand right now? So, if God has given me a vision, I'm going to be the next Warren Buffett, for instance. The way that Warren Buffett lives his life as the president of Berkshire Hathaway, which is his investment fund, is very different than how I would live my life as an aspiring Warren Buffett, because I don't have a Berkshire yet. But the kind of habits and things that were in Warren Buffett's hand, I don't know his full story, when he was at a similar phase of life as me, is he was applying the same Warren Buffett level of excellence and analysis to things. I don't know what he was doing, but maybe early in life he owned a gas station.
Yeah.
And he was playing the commodities market with a small amount of fuel that he was buying, just like he would trade commodities for Berkshire. So we all have something that's in our hand. And I think a lot of times, because we have this vision for ourselves that's so great, we tend to look past what's available in our life today.
Totally.
You know, maybe you're not in a position financially that you can quit your day job as a Jimmy John's employee to go and start your business. So you're going to have to take the same level of excellence that a successful entrepreneur, which you are, would be putting towards his business to what's in your hand, which is working at Jimmy John's.
Absolutely.
So, you know, even though there isn't a direct correlation between maybe what you're doing today, or maybe there is, maybe you are actually starting that company and you have the means to do that, which we encourage you to do if it's something that's financially feasible for you, or but they would have to apply that to the way that they apply mayo to sandwich bread before, well, they make a sandwich.
And I'll also add on to the Wright brothers. I'm not super familiar with their story, but what I do remember from researching them is like what was in their hand to build the airplane and to test it was they had a bicycle shop that they were literally working out of, and they would use that after hours for building their planes and testing them out and making, like, you know, flying them, bringing them back inside, fixing it, going back out, and then bringing it back. And that's a really cool testament to the point of using what was in their hand. They weren't like, I need to have an entire aviation facility before I can even build a plane. They used what they had and what was in their hand. And so even if your biggest obstacle right now is, I don't even know how to start, like, I don't even know how to begin this vision, what is in your hand? Like what Levi is talking about is so powerful, because there's probably a lot more around you than you think, because God's already provided the provision before he's given you the vision. And even if you feel like you're discouraged and not or qualified for whatever this vision is, we obviously know that God qualifies the called. That's something that's very popular that we talk about in culture. But it's also like important to know that we believe that all of us, most of us, are entrepreneurs, which is not necessarily a business person that's like amazing at accounting and spreadsheets and like all the business side of things. But an entrepreneur is someone that desires to take a risk to gain a reward. And it's really someone that does something about a problem that they see in the world, right? So they're actually doing something about it. So even if you don't feel like you're qualified because you don't have the education or the confidence or whatever, just know that God qualifies the called, first of all. So if he's called you to it, he's qualified you. But also know that there is that desire to take a risk inside of you, whatever it is. You take a risk every day on something, right? Like you're doing something, right? Like, I'm going to buy this bread over this bread. And that's a risk. That's a small risk, but it is a risk, right? So we do have that inside of us as humans and as God's children. And so what is it that you want to take a risk on to gain that reward? You truly are an entrepreneur.
Yeah. None of us are getting out of this life alive.
Yeah.
And whatever we build here, we can't take with us. And we are making calculated risks every day. So why not bet on yourself and bet on God by pursuing without fear what he is leading you to do.
Amen.
Now let's talk a little bit about perseverance. So we've talked about mapping out your vision. Now we've talked a little bit about how to, like, digging deeper into that. What's in your hand? How can you do that on a daily basis? Kind of removing some of the excuses. Sometimes the really vision is like really sweet, and then the roadmap is like a little fuzzy, and then excuses come in, and those excuses are really just the enemy trying to steal the word, saying, this really isn't feasible. You shouldn't even start doing this because you can't see the entire path right away. So why don't you just forget about it and just wait for these circumstances to change? But we're removing those excuses. We're asking ourselves, what's in our hand today? And moving past that, I want to talk about perseverance, because once you've mapped out your roadmap and you're starting on that journey to, with God, go and pursue the vision that He has for your life. Now it just comes down to the perseverance to keep doing it. Right. You know you're going to be a success because you're with God. And if you don't quit, you win, is so basically the motto for walking with God. You can't fail by definition, because if God is for you, who can be against you?
Amen.
So it comes down to perseverance. How are you going to stay the course and not fail? Sorry, that's our dog.
This is live, of course.
This is our little Pomeranian, Happy.
We'll just leave him here for a sec.
Yep.
As he calms down.
So, perseverance.
Yeah.
I think this is...
Staying the course.
Staying the course. This is kind of the new game for those of you guys that have followed along, and you're at a point now where you know what to do. You've just got to do it, and you've got to put yourself in a position and a mindset that you won't quit, because things are going to get difficult, and the enemy does not like and he has no power to stop you. You're already a success in Christ, but the enemy does not like people that have a vision for their life. They know what God's calling them to do. They have a roadmap on how to get there, and they're doing it every day. So that's where he comes in to try to steal the word and get you off course. So, honey, if I can ask you, what are some examples in your life of opportunities that you had to quit and you didn't?
So many to pick from.
What have the rewards been from that?
I would say that for my marketing business, I've had that for 10 years, and my goal with that was to get my dream job at a 9-to-5, like corporate, really amazing Hallmark movie type building. And that's what I really wanted to do, because I never went to college, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could do that without college.
She wanted that corner cubicle.
I did. I just wanted I really did. I never actually got the corner one, but
usually it's the corner office, but
exactly.
No, it was a really great job where she worked.
But I remember I was 5 years into my business, and I was just hitting so many obstacles, so many interesting client interactions, so many interesting people hating my work, that it's okay, I literally do, this is, you already know what I was doing, and you don't like it, that's fine. Let's find you a better person that will like it. Just all these things that you're okay, they're straight up saying they hate my work, or this and that. And it was just specific cases that just
people
didn't work out with their business.
I don't see how anyone could hate your work, because it's amazing.
Thank you.
These are just difficult clients,
of course,
but people saying that they hate your work, that is resistance. That is something to persevere through. So
I literally told my mom, who is the founder of Healing Journeys Today, I was I am so done with this business. I'm over it. And she's Carly, if you quit now, what have you built for so long? What have you worked so hard for this whole time? You are so close to that breakthrough. And so I ended up getting this random burst of motivation, and then it was so from God. I'm so grateful. I found an amazing course that launched me forward towards all these other skill sets I wanted to grow in, and it helped me get all these new types of clients. It was really cool. My business grew from that, and then I ended up getting my dream job 2 or 3 years later. But I wouldn't have wanted to still do that if I had quit at that time, and I built it so diligently, and it would have been so sad to see it crash and burn if I just gave up, because it got hard.
Yeah, and you might not have had the track record if you had quit at that time to be able to go into your dream job.
Exactly. I needed those moments. What about you?
There's been a lot of them. I think, there was a time I used to own a tree service, which I eventually sold off. There was times where I thought I was ready to hang it up with that. Usually the time to end something is not when you have like the greatest point of resistance. Usually it's when, you know, God is just sort of moving you on. And when you have the greatest level of resistance, it's, you know, I don't really have like a chapter and verse for this, but it's been my experience just walking with the Lord in my short time on earth. That is the time before your greatest breakthrough. And a lot of people that have lived a lot longer than us, we've talked about this before, that have walked with the Lord for a long time, they've noticed that same thing. And I've definitely seen that at least twice in my life. There was a time with my tree service where I was having a lot of staffing problems and a lot of frustrations with just basically what the business was making versus the effort that I was putting in. And I was basically faced with a choice of whether I was going to just quit the business and do something else, or if I was going to dig into the operations and figure out how to change those things. And God led me to reading actually like a couple of different books that just completely revolutionized the way that I ran my business. And those same principles, even though I sold off the business and I'm not in tree care anymore, I still use those principles today for our real estate business. You know, another example of, you know, not quitting, right on the cusp of your greatest breakthrough is there's been a lot of people that I've seen in the real estate market that face a little difficulty with maybe tenants and properties that they've owned or finding a deal and have prematurely sold off assets before, you know, and if they would have kept those assets or actually closed on the deals that they were so close to closing on and would have gotten to next, you know, those are properties that are worth 2, 3, 4 times what they were at the time. And I've just heard this story over and over again in the real estate market, and I think it applies to almost every industry, where the longer you do something and continue to improve it, the easier that it gets for you, but also the successes compound to themselves and grow at a level that's like way more than just, you know, 5% year over year. Like there's a compounding in rewards and in success that happens. And I think sticking through things in the long haul is always just going to produce the greatest amount of rewards. If you start a new business every year for 5 years, you really won't see, on the 5th business, you won't be any better off than you were at the first one. But if you start a business and you focus on improving it and put the same effort into it year after year after year for 5 years, you're going to really have something at the end of year 5.
You are.
So I think that's really important. It sounds just so simple, but don't quit. Don't stop the compounding of the growth and the successes that you've worked so hard for, because things will get easier over time and you will see more success.
Amen. And every step that you take makes you stronger and prepares you for what's greater ahead of you.
And if you're learning from your mistakes, you should only have to make them once. And eventually,
it's a win-win.
You just run out of mistakes. You've been doing it for so long and learning every time.
Yes. Well, that was so powerful. And we just really pray that this message can really help you on your path, wherever you're at in your vision walk. But just know that you are so worth it to pursue your vision. Like, you deserve to have the best life ever, and you deserve to pursue what it is that the Lord has called you to. Like, there's nothing else that needs to qualify you but Him. So thank you for listening to us this week, and we're so excited to see you next week as we continue celebrating the month of September with you. So have a great rest of your day, and we will see you soon.